Welcome to the Irish Dominican video series. In this series, we've been exploring the wonderful topic of prayer. So far, we've given an answer to the question, what is prayer? We brought out the fact that prayer is communication with God from the heart. In our last video, we explored the central role of Christ in our prayer life and how without Christ's salvific work, friendship with God would not be possible, for he bridges the divide between God and me. We also looked at the fact that Jesus himself taught his followers, by his words and deeds, that praying to God is very important because it makes us more like him.
In this video, we are going to continue to ask the question, why pray? We know from our discussion that as believers, we should pray. Yet, we all have things in our lives that we should do, like doing chores or studying for an exam. But these are things that I don't really want to do.
So maybe a more helpful way of thinking about today's topic is that we're not asking, why should I pray? But rather, why should I want to pray?
And why should we want to pray, brother?
That's a very good question. It might be helpful if we start with a more fundamental example from life. As human beings, we have all sorts of goals and dreams. These goals can be big or small. An example of a small goal could be something as normal as eating dinner. So what are the things that I need to do to fulfill this desire of mine?
Well, first I need to think about what I want for dinner. Then I need to think about what ingredients I need and go and buy them, and give myself the necessary time to prepare and cook it.
Okay, let's explore this a little further. Why did you cook dinner?
Well, because I wanted dinner and I like food.
Liking food is certainly a very important part of it. But let's say for some reason you didn't like food. You would still need to eat food, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We need food to survive.
So we can therefore say that the purpose or the goal of food is to sustain life and for us to thrive and grow as creatures. Interestingly, this is not only true about eating, but all of our goals are also directed to things that we at least think will fulfill us. What is the search for fulfillment? Or maybe more accurately, what do we mean by fulfillment? In today's world, we know this search for fulfillment by a more popular name. We call it happiness.
In other words, the reason we do things is ultimately to be happy?
Yes. Even though this is true, there is another dimension to this issue. Curiously, not only do we seek to be happy, but we also know that some things make us more happy than other things. For example, what do you think will make you more happy, a burger or a trip abroad?
I'd probably have to say a trip abroad.
And why?
I think a burger would give me some short-term happiness. I'd enjoy it, but after a while, I'd probably start feeling sick. While I think you can never get enough of visiting new places.
How about a trip abroad or training in the gym?
Even though I must admit, I like a good holiday. In the long run, training in the gym would make me happier because it keeps you fit and it actually helps you improve yourself.
And finally, what about helping at a homeless shelter or training in the gym?
It would have to be the homeless shelter because you're not doing it for yourself, but for others, while at the same time giving an opportunity to grow as a person.
You see, as humans, as we grow, we realize we have certain desires and capacities. At the basic level, we have all a desire for food, drink, and shelter. And when we receive them, we are happy, as nobody likes to be hungry, thirsty, or indeed homeless. When we reach our teenage years, we start to become aware of greater desires, such as self-improvement. Because through this, I can find greater forms of happiness, such as fame among my peers and success in sports.
Around the same time, we also become more aware of the needs of those around us. And as a result, I don't just want myself to be happy, but those around me as well. These things give a much deeper sense of happiness, because such acts of kindness leave a longer lasting positive impact on the world around us. Even small things, like listening to someone who is going through a tough time, or helping someone like a friend doing their homework. It can go a long way. We can also do some bigger things, like helping out in a local homeless shelter or giving money to help to the poor in other countries.
All of these desires that we have discussed make us happy to one degree or another. There is still one desire within us that can bring us a greater happiness that all the things combined cannot.
And what is that?
It is the desire to know God and to have a relationship with Him, because all other forms of happiness we mentioned are short-term or can be taken away from us in one way or another. For example, I could run out of food. Somebody else could be more successful or famous than me. Well, having a relationship with God can never be taken away, nor does it ever stop. But to have a relationship with God, there needs to be communication, and this is ultimately what prayer is.
So, if I remember that prayer puts me in touch with our deepest happiness, I can see how this could make prayer something that we would want to do. Of course, that takes time to build up. After all, relationships take time to develop.
Yes, these things do take time. An important key to remember is that the more we spend time getting to know Jesus, the more we will come to love Him. Thankfully, we do not need to do this work all by ourselves. We have the writings of many holy men and women who can introduce us to Jesus, not to mention the church and the witness of the Gospels.
So, brother, you just mentioned the Gospels and the writings of the saints. I'm curious, are we still talking about prayer or are we talking about study?
It actually can be both, depending on the context. There are people in the church who have dedicated their time and efforts to understanding the meanings of the text, and these people we call theologians. However, there is an even older tradition in which we pray using the sacred scriptures, called Lectio Divina, which translates into English as divine reading. This is something we're going to explore a little bit more in detail in the next video.
Yes, we have covered quite a lot in this video. It might be a good idea to take a moment to reflect on what at this moment in time makes me happy. Is prayer one of those things? And if not, it might be worth asking yourself, how can I make prayer a moment of encounter with the God who has loved me and continues to love me?
This brings us to the end of this video. We hope to see you in the next one.